Howdy design fans, and welcome back. In the last lecture, when we spoke about B.J. Fogg's behavioral model, we spoke about how to influence human behavior with the copy and the calls to action on your page. In this lecture, I want to talk about making your content, making your brand memorable by getting an understanding of how the human brain accepts information being transmitted to it. But first, we're going to have a shot because this is the last lecture in section 1. We've made it, which is fantastic. I hope you've been finding all the information extremely useful and extremely valuable, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the course. But let's go have that shot. In the same way that it's important in good web design to understand human behavior and what motivates human behavior, it's equally important to understand how people learn, how the human mind accepts information, because that's also going to influence how you design and how you develop effective landing pages and effective websites. I'm going to have a shot now for me, and then I'll have a shot at the end of the lecture for you. Cheers. All right, let's get into it. The limbic system, right? It's the second part of your brain to have evolved. After the limbic system, you have the neocortex. And the neocortex is what's responsible for very intellectual decisions, evaluating different options, making more sophisticated judgments. But the limbic system, it's responsible for all the emotional, attention, affective responses and memories in the human brain, right? So it's snap judgments. The limbic system is what's responsible for value judgments. When we have an initial emotional reaction to something, that first impression of something, when I land on the web page and I get an immediate sense of whether or not this is going to be a good site or they're going to have what I offer or I trust them, that's all being done in the limbic system of the brain. The limbic system is in the driver's seat when it talks about, when the brain thinks about avoiding pain and pursuing pleasure. It's responsible for spontaneous behavior, right? Those are all the types of things that the limbic system is responsible for. And all the different techniques and all the different things we're learning about when it comes to psychology, when it comes to persuasiveness, when it comes to not disturbing your website visitors and giving them clarity, all that is really just trying to tap in a positive way to our visitors' limbic systems. We want to appeal to them in an emotional, psychological way where they immediately feel that they trust us, that we're a legitimate company, that our products and services are of a high quality, right? So this is all about getting, it's an interesting dichotomy, right? Because we're talking about a lot of sophisticated and specific strategies that are very well thought out, that are, takes money and time and effort to test and to iterate and to redesign, but all for the sake of kind of getting in touch with a very affective part of the human mind, a part of the human mind which doesn't think too much about the judgments it makes. So it's an interesting dichotomy, but that's really what's going on here. What's important with regards to the limbic system is we want to be making our content memorable. You want your landing page to be memorable. You want your landing page to be distinctive. You want to create experiences that your visitors will interact with in a way that will make an impression on them. They will retain that information. So in order to do that, we understand that we're tapping into an emotional, psychological state of the person. That's the part of the brain that good landing page design is going to speak to. We understand that we want to make it memorable. The important thing to know, the last piece of the puzzle, is understanding the different ways people learn. Okay? How do people accept information that's transmitted to them? There's 3 primary ways people accept information, that what they see, hear, and do is stored in their long-term memory. This is important, very, very important through any stage of the funnel. I'm going to talk about it later. It's most important in the desire and interest stages when people are learning more about your products, because that's when they're taking the initiative and they're giving you the attention to solidify their engagement with your brand. They want to see more product details. They want to see more. They want to see a greater and a more nuanced breakdown of your services. And that's where kind of understanding these three different learning modalities come in, right? So you have, this is all pretty straightforward stuff that you probably know already. So you have visual, right? People who learn by seeing. So you want to be able to talk to those types of people who lean towards learning by seeing, right? So then you're going to use imagery. You're going to use imagery that complements the text. So a person says, okay, I get what that means. A color scheme, that works. Tables, charts, infographics, right? Videos is a huge thing. Video descriptions, intro videos, explainer videos. You might have a guided tour. If you have a web app, if you've created a web app, you might have a guided tour where people could see where to click, what things, how something should be done. Maps, things like that, right? So a lot of people will learn by seeing. So you want to have those visual elements available. A lot of people learn by hearing, right? So you have the audio learners. So we're going to talk about exactly how these things get applied in a conventional landing page in a second. But things, basic, audio elements, telephone support, right? You might incorporate it somewhere in your experience. Might be things like music. Video also is very audio driven. Right? Sometimes people want to hear a description of your product. They want to hear a review of your product as opposed to reading a review of your product. Right? A lot of people like to learn by hearing. It's rare to have just a plain audio clip on your website. It's usually typically done with a video, which is why video shows up for audio learners and for visual learners. Voiceovers, again, guided tours. There are a lot of websites that will have a guided tour of a product category, things like that. You also have kinesthetic learners, people who learn by doing. And this is a huge thing. It's really on the forefront now of modern web experiences, front-end design, where a lot of brands are incorporating interactive elements to their website experiences, right? People like to learn by doing. There are people who like to interact with things. That helps them, that helps the content become more memorable. So brands are introducing things like quizzes, right? This is a big thing. Are you really an expert in woodworking, right? So you'll have like these 5 different questions, and then to get your results, you could send in your email, and obviously the company is either a subscription to a woodworking magazine, or they sell resalvaged wood, whatever it is. You'll have things like games, role-playing. A big thing with kinesthetic learning when it comes to e-commerce is being able to customize a product. So if we have a client that sells picture frames, so I could upload the image of my art that I want to get printed, and I could try on different mats and different frames, different colors, different materials, right? So that's I'm learning might be the wrong word in that context, but I'm engaging and I'm creating a more interactive experience with that brand by doing, right? A few things to know about these 3 different learning modalities. People will tend to lean towards one of those modalities. I know personally, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I don't like to think too much. I don't like to listen or hear too much. I want to be able to do. I like the quizzes. I like interactive, e-commerce product experiences. I learn by doing. A lot of people will learn by seeing or by hearing, but people will lean towards one modality. But research has shown that there is not necessarily any best way to design your pages. It's not that there's like the majority of people are kinesthetic or the majority of people are visual learners. It's a basically equal distribution. Another thing that's very important is that none of this that we're talking about here, none of these elements that you want to add an element that appeals to your audio people or your visual learners or your kinesthetic learners, it should not interfere with the good design. All the things that we've spoken up until now and all the things that we're going to talk about after all this, they all still hold true. Good design principles hold true. This is not any practical advice. I'm not telling you that you should add video to your site. I'm not telling you that you should add an interactive quiz to your site. These are ideas that should help get your juices flowing and your cogs turning about potential elements that could help the experience. And e-commerce is a really, really great example. I remember I was on a website, skis.com, where I wanted to buy a new pair of skis a couple seasons ago. And they do this really well, right? On their product page, they have reviews that are text-based, right? They have images of the product. So they have detailed product visuals. They had detailed product photos. They had infographics about the different types of woods and the different shape of the actual ski. They also had video reviews of the skis. They had actual people skiing on that model and reviewing the ski through a video, right? They also had people who just reviewed the ski, and they had it text-based as well. So they gave me a lot of information based on the product through audio channels and visual channels. From a kinesthetic perspective, e-commerce companies have a lot of opportunity to allow people to customize products. So for example, if you're skis.com, you could offer customers the ability to see how a certain ski jacket or a certain pair of ski pants or helmet looks with that pair of skis, right? So that's with clothing, with things like picture frames. There's basically any product category you could think of, you could come up with some way that a person could learn by doing. And it doesn't have to be doing like I'm actually playing a game or I'm actually taking a quiz. If I'm just clicking and dragging, and I'm clicking to change the color and I see it affected here, and I'm clicking to there's a grade I saw ordering from Wayfair once, another great example. I was able to see this table that I might order, this couch. I could take a picture of my living room and I could superimpose the table that I might buy into my living room. I'm sure many of you have seen this. A lot of online retailers of furniture and electronics are doing this. You could do this also with, I think it's with Amazon. If I'm buying a TV, or it might have been Best Buy, I could see how that TV looks in my living room, right? I could take a picture. I've also seen another great example of kinesthetic learning is where it shows a specific product I'm buying in relation to the height of a dog, the height of a person, the height of a normal sized room in a home. And you can get a sense based on selecting different scenes to put your products in, how that thing would actually look. So that would fall under kinesthetic learning, right? It's not necessarily really being engrossed in some sort of like video game per se. It's just that you're involved with learning more about the product. You're active in learning more about the product. It's not passive, right? This is very passive. I could be watching, I could be reading a review. I could be sitting back and watching a review. It's passive. But kinesthetic learning is more, I'm taking an active role. So if you sell things online, right? If you identify as an e-commerce company, you should really aim to have some sort of element, you should have some sort of element that falls under each one of these product categories, so you could appeal to your visitors who will likely be distributed throughout these three different learning modalities. The people who learn by seeing, the people who learn by doing, and the people who learn by listening. Once again, this is especially important during the desire and interest stages of the funnel, where it's not necessarily meant for that first landing page or the home page, where you want to give people a very simple, clear, and effective overview of what you do, what your value proposition is. This stuff comes more into play when you need to now give more substance. You need to now give more supporting information. You need to now provide all those details about your products, the nuances of your services, what's going to happen after you get in touch with me, right? So try to think about your visitors and how they learn and what you could do to appeal to the different types of learning modalities. And ultimately, obviously, it all comes back to that limbic system, really just in a very subtle and nuanced way, getting into the consciousness of that potential customer. That's really what we're going for here. So we wrapped up section 1 of this course. Very exciting. I promised you I would give you guys, I would take a shot in honor of you, my wonderful students. Listen, I hope that this course has gotten off to a good start for you. I'm really happy with the pace, the content that we've been covering. I think already you're in a position to drastically increase your conversion rate. And we're just getting started. So I'll drink to that. Beautiful. All right. Thank you very much. It's been a fantastic journey so far. And I look very much forward to seeing you guys very soon in section number 2.